Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. Today I'm going to be doing my annual video of telling you guys all the movies I watched for the first time in 2023 that I feel like I've been missing out on. This year it is a tiny bit of a cheat because there are a couple movies on this list that I have seen previously that I just rewatched this year that either I watched in the past but I didn't really give a lot of attention to, and so this time watching them I gave all my attention to and I was like, wow, this was actually great. Or there's one movie on here that I watched over 10 years ago that I haven't rewatched since this year, and rewatching it this year I was like, wow, this movie was so good. I know I have movies in the past that either came out in the very end of 2022 and then I only watched them in January of 2023. I'm still counting those. Or movies that did come out in 2023 that I just didn't watch for a really long time. I actually don't have very many to talk about. I only have 5 movies, a few TV shows, some honorable mentions, and then of course my favorite movies of the year. Let's just get started. The first movie on my list is the movie that came out in December of 2022 and I watched it in January of 2023. So not necessarily super old or anything. I did end up seeing this movie in theaters. I wanted to include it because this movie was so freaking good and I just want to talk about it again, I know. And that is Puss in Boots 2: The Last Wish. This movie was by far the biggest surprise for me. I had no intentions of seeing this movie. I am so over the Shrek franchise. I liked Shrek when I was a kid. I know it's kind of had a cult following and a resurgence and people are obsessed with Shrek. I am not one of those people. I haven't even seen Puss in Boots 1 or Shrek 4. Is that the most recent one? And I had zero intention of seeing Puss in Boots 2. When I heard that they were making a sequel, I was like, okay, I will not be seeing that. But we had quite a few people in our lives telling us that we needed to see it, that it was so good. So one day, Sam and I can't remember exactly what we were doing. I feel like we were just kind of cleaning the house. And for some reason, we had a whole bunch of cardboard to get rid of. And where the bins are is right beside the movie theater. So we're like, well, should we go see a movie while we're there? It was literally 2 hours before the movie. We bought tickets. Holy smokes, were we completely blown away and surprised by this movie. I will say I'm not a giant fan of the animation. It's just not my style. I don't really love this very anime-ish style. I know this style was what they used for the new Spider-Man movies, and the first one actually won Best Animated Feature, so I understand it's popular, but it's just not my style. I also don't love that it wasn't the same style that they used for the first Puss in Boots. Besides that, this movie was incredible. The villain in this movie, the Big Bad Wolf, was so terrifying. His little whistle that he has is terrifying. I like that it also showed some very serious topics, like having anxiety attacks and the fear of death. If you have children, I wouldn't recommend this to children who are really little because, as I said, the Big Bad Wolf is kind of terrifying. We watched this movie with my brother-in-law and we didn't watch it until after the kids went to bed because I don't think they're quite old enough for this movie yet. This movie was so good and by far one of the biggest surprises I've had in film in a while. Next movie, I don't know exactly when this came out, but it definitely came out a long time ago. So this one definitely isn't a cheat in the sense that it was oh, this came out December 31st and I watched it January 2nd, so haha. No, this came out a long time ago, and that is the movie Train to Busan. Here's the thing. I hate zombie movies. I have yet to find a zombie movie or TV show that I actually enjoy. I don't know what it is. I've tried really hard. I watched The Walking Dead, World War Z, I Am Legend. I haven't seen the original Night of the Living Dead, which I do want to watch, but either way, I haven't watched that. But for the most part, I've seen a lot of zombie things and I hate everything. Zombies is not my genre. But Train to Busan was so freaking good. And I think it's because of the human characters in this movie and like what's going on with them that just make it so good. This movie had me absolutely sobbing by the end of it. And not only that, but the actors who played the zombies and all the like contortioning that they did, particularly the first zombie on the train, just so impressive and so well done. It is a Korean film, so if you can handle movies with subtitles, I highly recommend it. Has this given me like a rediscovering of zombie films? No, because we watched Peninsula, which is the sequel, and where I gave Train to Busan 9 out of 10, I gave Peninsula 5 out of 10. It just was not nearly as good. I just had to close the blinds because I realized the light was shining on me really weird. So that's why the light has kind of changed in here. But either way, if you enjoy movies or can watch movies with subtitles, and I was gonna say, if you like zombie movies, give this a chance. But even if you don't like zombie movies, give this a chance, because I don't like zombie movies and I loved this movie. So this is one that is a little bit of a cheat, not in the sense that it came out recently. This movie came out a long time ago, but it's a cheat in the sense that I technically have watched it, but the first time I watched it, which I will admit was during my Disney movie marathon, I didn't give it 100% of my attention, and we rewatched it this year and I did give it my attention and I loved it. And that is the movie The Absent-Minded Professor. I gave this 10 out of 10. I loved this movie. I thought it was so funny, and honestly, anything that Fred MacMurray is in is an immediate like 10 out of 10 because I love Fred MacMurray. This movie was just so funny. I honestly can really see why this was kind of like the movie chosen to make a remake of. I haven't watched Flubber in a really long time, so I can't really compare the two. I feel like I will like them just the same because Fred MacMurray and Robin Williams are both two incredible actors that I really, really love. So I feel like I'm gonna love Flubber just as much. But The Absent-Minded Professor was so stinking good. I loved it. I was laughing my head off the whole time. I'm really enjoying watching a lot of these like older Disney movies. Sam and I have both made wheels on our phones. So we use this app literally just called Wheel, and we've made wheels on our phone. This is what mine looks like. It has almost 900 movies on it, and basically what it is I've gone through all of our movies. I also add in movies that I know are on Netflix that I want to watch, and it just is a way for us to watch things that we wouldn't necessarily always pick. If you know me, you know that I will most likely aim for like Star Wars or something when it's my turn to pick a movie. And so having these wheels, I have added almost all of our movies onto the wheel, and I just take them off as we watch them. But it's just a way for us to like rewatch or watch for the first time movies that we have in our collection that we wouldn't necessarily always reach for. One movie on that list that we watched a little while ago that I haven't again really watched for a long time was the movie White Fang. I liked that movie. It was really cute, and I'm just really enjoying having this wheel be kind of like our decision maker, and it's finding some really great gems that maybe I wouldn't have watched in the past. The Absent-Minded Professor was a 10 out of 10. It was so cute. Then I have two movies. I don't know exactly when these came out. One is the like original and one is the sequel. And I had no intention of watching these movies ever in my whole life, but my sister and her husband were like, we should watch these movies. They're so funny. My sister and I have very similar senses of humor, so I was like, okay, let's give them a try. So me and Sam bought a combo pack of these two movies, and when we were on like a staycation with my sister and her husband, we watched one night and one the other night. And even though one's like the sequel is just as good, and those are the movies Daddy's Home and Daddy's Home 2. Very controversial, but I am not a giant fan of Will Ferrell. I don't like the movie Elf. I know it's like a classic and everybody loves it. I don't like that movie. It's just not my style, and I really don't like Step Brothers. It's just, I don't find those movies funny. However, these two movies, Daddy's Home and Daddy's Home 2, were so funny. I don't know if it's maybe Will Ferrell and how he is like with Mark Wahlberg, but it was just a perfect combination. They were so funny together. These movies I thought were so good because it's not like crude or over the top humor. The humor in this movie is very subtle. You have to be watching this movie and you have to be paying attention and listening to what they're saying to really hear the funny things that they're saying and really appreciate it, because lots of the times like what they're saying is very subtle. Like a lot of the times the jokes that they say, they just slip them in there and they're so funny. And the second one is literally just as good as the first one. I gave them both a 7 out of 10. I thought they were so freaking funny. The second one is now like our family's official like Christmas movie. My mom is very particular about the humor she likes, but we were like, I'm pretty sure even she would like this movie. Like I said, it's not crude. There's no like unnecessary nudity in this movie, and it's just so funny. So if you haven't watched these movies, I would recommend them. And that's, again, coming from someone who has stated in the past that they don't even really like Will Ferrell or his humor. Definitely give these movies a chance if you haven't seen them before. Then we have one more movie. I don't know exactly when this movie came out because IMDb says it came out in 2022, but it for sure didn't come out here until 2023. It is an Australian movie, so maybe it came out like in Australia in 2022. I just know that I bought it in 2023 here and I had to like pre-order it, and as soon as we had it we watched it. So I'm very confused of the timing of this movie, but either way it was incredible, and that is the movie Talk to Me. First of all, when I first watched this movie I had no idea the extent to how little the directors had actually done film-wise prior to making this movie. This was literally their very first movie they actually, like feature-length film, they actually directed and put together. The two directors of this movie, I believe, are brothers, and they've literally only made like YouTube videos. And then they come out with this masterpiece. This movie was so freaking good. It did have like a couple jump scares, but for the most part, it was just like an eerie feeling movie. Like just like a movie you leave feeling like, oh, it was so powerful the way this movie was. And the ending of this movie, oh my goodness. I remember watching this movie, and when the ending happened I literally was like on the floor because the ending of this movie was incredible. So good. I'm pretty sure almost everyone in this movie, this is like their first time like acting in like a movie, and everyone was so incredible. They were so good. Just really great job at making you feel like uneasy and weird and gross. Just such an incredible movie. I will say I wasn't as like scared as I thought I would be watching this movie. Like I heard people say that this is one of the like scariest movies they've ever seen, and I wasn't feeling like super duper scared or anything. Like there was no part of this movie that I had to like hide under a blanket or anything like that. We watched this movie with my sister, who was basically under her blanket the whole entire movie. I never like felt like that kind of scared. It was not a scary movie in the sense that there's like a boogeyman or something like that. Like it's just like a movie of feeling uneasy and depressed and gross. It's the type of like scary movie where maybe it doesn't like freak you out or anything like that, but it makes you feel a certain way, which I feel like not a lot of movies are able to accomplish that nowadays, and this movie did it so good. Completely different from so many scary movies nowadays. So now we're going to talk about TV shows. All of these came out quite a while ago. First one is Star Wars Rebels. I actually think in last year's I talked about Star Wars The Clone Wars. I don't know for sure. But I want to say that I think I like I know I like Rebels better than Clone Wars. Don't get me wrong, Clone Wars is still very good, and I really like a lot of the stories that go on during the Clone Wars, but I feel like I just liked Rebels better because it was just one group of this team, and we just followed this group the whole way through. It wasn't jumping back and forth from like the clones to Padme to Ahsoka to Anakin to Obi-Wan to all of these characters, which again, don't get me wrong, there were certain plot points of each of these characters that had incredible stories, like the whole trial Ahsoka had to go through, things like that. Those were amazing in the Clone Wars, but I think I just liked that this was very condensed down to just this team, and I loved that. And I really liked every single character on this show. I really didn't like Ezra for the first season. The first season of Rebels, I was really debating if I would be able to finish this show because I was like, I don't feel like I can handle Ezra. But he very much grew and very much improved, even by the second season, to the point where we really blasted through the last couple seasons, especially because we were trying to get this done before Ahsoka started. I will say, where there was definitely sad moments in the Clone Wars, nothing made me cry where Rebels did make me cry. I loved Rebels. I thought it was so good. I'm so glad I finally got into it, and I'm very glad we watched it before Ahsoka, because it is unfortunately quite necessary to watch, especially the last season of Rebels, to understand what's going on in Ahsoka. So the next TV show I'm going to talk about is the TV show Derry Girls, which I've actually already watched twice all the way through, which isn't saying much because it's only 3 seasons and each season is like 7 episodes long, so it's really not that long. But I watched it all the way through and instantly was like, Sam, you need to come watch the show with me because it is so funny. So this show is about a group of friends who are growing up and living in the city of Derry in Ireland. The shenanigans they get into and the characters in this show are so funny. You'll probably have to watch it with subtitles because they are very Irish. It is very hard to understand what they are saying half the time, but oh my goodness, one of the funniest shows I have ever seen. My little brother told me to watch this show a million years ago, and I don't know why it took me so long to actually finally watch it, but now him and I are constantly texting each other lines from the show because it is so funny and so quotable and so memorable, and I think I need to rewatch it for a 3rd time because it is so funny and so good. So it is on Netflix if you're interested. It's about 3 seasons. The seasons are like 7 episodes long. It is very quick to get through and I very recommend it. It is so freaking funny. And the last TV show I'm going to talk about before we get into my honorable mentions of the year is the show Kim's Convenience. Sam has a friend who was talking about Kim's Convenience. I've heard of this show, but I've never thought of watching it. The most I've heard about this show is that Simu Lee, who is Shang-Chi in the Marvel Universe, was a main character in it, and that this is kind of where he got his kind of like start in fame and stuff. I didn't really know much about it, but Sam's friend was telling us about it and telling us it was like one of her favorite shows of all time. It's also one of her favorite plays, which I didn't even know it was a play. I found the entire series on sale at Sunrise Records, so I picked it up. Along with having our wheel of movies, we also have a wheel of TV shows that we watch. Kim's Convenience went on the wheel and we actually spun it pretty quickly and started watching it. And this TV show was so freaking cute. I loved it. I am so glad we watched it, but I am also very glad that Sam's friend who recommended it to us, she is very knowledgeable about the history of the play as well as the show, because there were certain things in the show that I didn't like and I wished they had changed. But then talking to Sam's friend, we learned that these choices that they made were actually because it was requested by the main girl who wrote the play, and she actually is technically Janet in the show. She's not the actress who plays Janet, but she's like the real life Janet, if that makes sense. So she actually like made these requests, and the producers wanted to change things because like they wanted it to make it more appealing to audiences and stuff, and she was very adamant saying, no, that's not what happens in real life. we're not doing that. And hearing that, I was very happy that they respected those choices and they went that way. Where, yeah, we're left off as the audience wishing different things would happen, but to know that that's actually what happened in real life makes it a little bit better. I loved all the actors in it. They were so good. The character Simu Lee, who his name is Jung in the show, by the end of the show, by like season 4, he was getting on my nerves so bad. He's just a very like selfish character, and I feel like Simu Lee played him very well to make me hate him. With that being said, did I send hate to Simu Lee? No, I didn't, because I am old enough and mature enough to know that that's not who he is in real life. So, you know, take that as you may. So many characters started out one way, or I thought they were going to be one way, and they just like completely surprised me. Jung's best friend Kimchi, I thought I was going to hate him. I was mad that he was a title character in the show, and I thought I was gonna hate his guts. But by the end of the show, he was one of my favorite characters. I loved him. And obviously, like, Amma and Appa were just fantastic the whole show. And I now follow the actor whose name I'm forgetting, but he plays Appa on the show. I follow him on Instagram because he's so funny and he is so proud of being Up. That's his Instagram name, is Angry Appa. It just makes me so happy to see that he is like so proud of this role. And also he loves the fact that he is in Star Wars, which is just like A+. I also didn't know this, but I guess the actual store is still in Toronto. So Sam and I are going to Toronto in February, and I specifically asked my friend that we will be staying with when we do like a day in Toronto. I was like, could we possibly go to Kim's Convenience if it's not like super out of the way? So I'm very excited to actually see the actual store that was on Kim's Convenience. So now I'm going to get into some quick honorable mentions, and then I will say my favorite movies of the whole year. So first honorable mention is the movie The Possession. So this is my cheat in the sense that I have for sure seen this movie. I saw this movie in 2012 when it first came out into theaters, and honestly I could do a whole like almost like story time of my experience seeing that movie, because I went to see that movie when I was living in Florida with a friend of mine, and oh my goodness, our experience seeing that movie and just like what kind of in a way played out after the movie ended was just a hysterical little bit of events. I don't think it's a long enough story to do an entire story time video about, but if you're interested, let me know and I can maybe put together other movie related story times and make a video about that. I saw that movie back in 2012 and I have not seen it again since this year. So 11 years I have gone not watching that movie. I have to say, it holds up. Along with zombie movies that I talked about earlier, I am not a big fan of possession movies or like exorcism movies, but this one is the only one that I really like. The reason I finally got around to rewatching this was because we went to see Oppenheimer in theaters, and there was a trailer for the new Exorcist movie that came out this year. And my brother-in-law was saying how he really doesn't like those kinds of movies. He really didn't like even the first Exorcist movie. And I was like, yeah, there's one like possession exorcism movie that I've seen that I actually really enjoyed. And so I found that on Amazon and we had a movie night, and rewatching it, I was like, dang, this movie is still so good. My next honorable mentions go to a bunch of movies that I'll just quickly go through, that all of these movies, when they came out, I wanted to watch them, and it's just taken me a long time to actually get to watching them, and upon watching them, they are fantastic. And so those movies are Zero Dark 30, Mass, Hidden Figures, and Richard Jewell. All of these movies I've been wanting to watch for a while, and I just haven't gotten around to it until this year, and all of them were so good. Then I have one TV show that's an honorable mention, and this very much could have been more than an honorable mention, like an actual movie I would have like talked about had it not been for the last 2 seasons, and that is Arrested Development. The first 3 seasons of this show were fantastic, hysterical. We quote a lot of the things that are said, but season 4 we were struggling to get through season 4 because it was just so all over the place. It just went completely off the rails and it just wasn't funny anymore. And all these characters that I initially was like, okay, I don't like you, but I can handle you. Now I don't like you and I can't handle you. We tried to watch season 5 and season 5 was basically the exact same thing season 4 was, so we literally gave up on season 4. So if you do want to watch this show, I would recommend only watching season 1 through 3. Those seasons are super good, very funny, but the rest of the show was just awful. And now I'm going to end off this video by telling you guys my favorite movies that did come out in 2023 that I did watch in 2023. I have 2 that I'm just going to quickly touch on. First one is Disney Pixar's Elemental. I loved this movie so much. I've rewatched it about 100 times at this point. I think it is so cute. It is exactly what I want from a Disney and Pixar movie. I loved it. It made me happy. It made me cry. I loved it so freaking much. And then my other favorite movie, which is a complete opposite of Elemental, is Saw X. I think I did like a almost 30-minute long video on Saw X when it came out. As someone who has loved the Saw franchise since basically the beginning, I loved this movie. I thought it was so good. I have so many reasons why I thought this was just so incredible. I feel like I'm in the minority when I say that I really liked the movie Jigsaw. I personally don't like Saw 7 very much. It's one of my least favorites. And then Spiral is also one of my least favorites of the franchise. So if you also dislike Jigsaw, then the last few have just been bad. Saw X was such a step up in both the story and quality of the movie, but it still felt like a Saw movie where Spiral very much lacked in that department. My favorite 2 movies are 2 very completely different movies, but I loved them both so much. I haven't rewatched Saw X since it came out. We saw it in theaters and it is out on DVD right now, but I haven't purchased it yet just because Christmas is coming up and I don't know if I am maybe going to be receiving it for Christmas. But once Christmas is over and if I have it, then I will rewatch it, and if I don't have it, then I'm going to go out and buy it for myself, and then I will rewatch it. That is going to be it for this video. I really hope you enjoyed. If there's anything out there that is old that I haven't talked about or anything that you think I need to see, leave it down below. Let me know, and maybe it'll appear in next year's video when I talk about movies I discovered in 2024. But that's going to be it for now. Thank you guys so much for watching this video. If you liked it, I would love it if you would like and subscribe. I post new videos every single Friday and I would love to have you here. Thank you for watching. I'll talk to you later. Bye everybody.